Oh, greetings, people of Earth. This is Ron Proctor. I'm a space artist, and I work for an organization that does lots of astronomy research. And my job is to take that astronomy research and turn that into graphics and animation that we use in press releases and planetarium shows and all kinds of media. And I'm not representing my employer today. I'm just doing this in my off time. And but what I want to do is give everyone an introduction to Blender, especially the Planetarium specialist. I'm going to give you an introduction to Blender in case you haven't done that yet, and get you started, just so you can get your feet wet, and then I'll be answering any questions that you might have along the way. This is a live session, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. Also, I'll be kind of keeping an eye on the comments on the video later on, so if there's any questions moving forward, I'll do another session later and we'll answer other questions as they come. So let's get started. So you want to get Blender, you're going to go to blender.org and you can download Blender. It is free. And there's instructions to install it, and there's several ways to install it. In fact, one of the ways to install and manage your Blender installation is Steam. Just one of several ways to do that. Blender works on a wide variety of operating systems, and the one you want is the current version, and currently that's 4.4.3. It's got the little cat on it. Let's take a look at the interface. And I've got mine set up for Planetarium rendering. I'll show you how to change the default here in just a minute, but for now, let's go just to the default interface. I'm going to load factory settings. We have what's called the default cube. We have a camera. And we have a light in the scene. And these are, this is just the starter scene, so that when you go to render, you can make sure your render works. And that's what you should get if you render image. Also in the scene is a 3D cursor. That's that little life ring thing that you see there. We'll use that in a little while. Over here on the right, you have a 3D tripod with all these exploded colorful buttons on it, and if you click and drag that, we can look around our scene. You can also do that with your mouse. If you take your mouse, let me show you up close. Take your mouse and click that middle button on your mouse, click that down. You can do what we call a middle click drag, and that's the same as dragging that thing up there. If your mouse does, whoopsie, if your mouse doesn't have that, then that's just sad. But you can always come up here and click and drag on this thing. Also on this thing, very useful, is you can click on the individual dots. And what that gives you is an orthographic view. You can see up here on the left-hand top corner, it says top orthographic, which tells me I'm looking at the orthographic XY perspective. Here I'm looking at the right side orthographic, the back orthographic, and I could even click that Y again, look at the front. Orthographic views are very important when you want to line things up really precisely. And to exit an orthographic view, you can just rotate out of it. Right here we have the hand lens, which is going to zoom up and down. Click that to zoom up and down. So click it, drag up, and whoopsie, and click, drag up and down to zoom in and out. Oh my goodness, that's really Really getting sensitive there. You can also roll the scroll wheel on your mouse, which is what I normally do. Now there's the hand. That is how you grab the scene, move it left to right. Or up and down. I'm not sure. I have something in there making this kind of sensitive. Left to right, up and down. So I also can do that with my mouse. I can hold down Shift on my keyboard, do a middle click drag, and I'm moving left to right, up and down, middle click drag with a Shift held down. And that's how we pan around the scene. Continuing around our little tour here, we have some view modes. We have our wireframe view mode. So sometimes your scene, it will get complex and you want to just decomplexify it and just look at things in the wireframe view, or you might want to see through things. That's where wireframe view comes in handy. Solid view mode is where we'll spend a lot of time. There's also material preview, which takes a moment to load, but that will give you a material preview with a HDR lit background, and it doesn't always look right. I end up using either wireframe, solid, or render preview most of the time. Render preview is going to give you just what it says on the tin. It's a render preview, and so that's going to try to represent the shading as accurately as possible for what the render is going to look like. And just like we did earlier, if we go to render image, we should get something that looks kind of like that. This button right here is our camera view, which gives us our camera perspective. So if we combine that with render preview, we get that nice render preview. Okay. We've got some other stuff up here. So we'll talk about coordinate systems in a moment when we talk about rotation. So let's talk about selector. The selection tool, if we hold down the mouse button on this, we see we have a few different selection modes we can select from. For now, we'll stick with select box. We also have the cursor tool. I'll ask you not to use that for now because it can kind of mess things up if you move that cursor around too much. I like to keep it right in the middle of the scene. We have the move tool. That's the one with the arrows. And we can move things around by either clicking on the object and moving it, which I kind of don't like to do. I prefer to click on the arrows and constrain the movement to the specific direction, because when you're looking at things in 3D space, it can be hard to get things right back in the center where you think you want them. See? Let me put that back in the center. Let me try at least one more time. I got lucky, but I'm still off a little bit. This is where these views come in handy. If I wanted to really recenter that, I could do it this way. In a moment, I'll show you a numeric way to do that. Oh, heck, I'll just show you now. Over here on the right-hand side, we have several different things, but for now, let's just focus on this one, this object properties. So make sure your box is selected. Click on object properties, and we can change location by either clicking and dragging on these numbers, or we can put in specific numbers, which people tend to find preferable. At least I do. I like to get really specific about where things are in the world. Rotation now. With rotations, again, we can rotate in screen space, which is not as useful unless you're in an orthographic view. Control Z. Or we can rotate along one of the axes. That was the x-axis. Here's the y-axis. And the z-axis. Now we see this is off of the world axis, although this is oriented to the world axis. This gizmo here, this control tool, is oriented to the world axis. And that thing keeps distracting me. I wonder what's... Okay, sorry. If I change this to local, it's going to be oriented to its local axis, which is handy sometimes. So just be aware you can change your transform orientation from global to local, and even to some of these others later on. But for now, as a beginner, stick to global and local. Scale. This is one where I do like to click and drag just on that circle. And also in the local, it's nice to be in the local coordinate system for scale, because I can scale in the local X direction here, make that really long. And maybe I want to scale it down uniformly. And go back to rotation, and I could rotate it some more. Whatever you please. Again, we can come over here to our transform orientations. We can reset our rotations. Scale is also controlled here. Now I put in some zeros for scale. That was kind of a silly move, wasn't it? 0 on scale is going to be totally, on any vector is going to be totally flat. You might get funny artifacts in rendering. If you want to move through these really fast like I just did, it's just a tab key. So 1 tab, 0 tab, 1 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab. So there's some basic ways to move stuff around in Blender and to move, yeah, you got your interactive tools, you've got your numeric tools, you know how to look through your scene. And now let's take and make this camera into a fisheye camera so that we can render fisheye content for your dome. Move that out of the way. I'm going to take this camera and let's put it in the middle of the scene. And I want to point that camera straight up. So let's take that X rotation and make it a 180. Now that that's pointing straight up, we need to change some other parameters in our Blender scene. So we're going to go to this top, well, actually not the very top, but this one up here near the top called Render Properties. And we need to change the render engine from Eevee to Cycles. And for now I'll leave that with CPU, but if you have a good GPU, there's a way to turn that on. In fact, if you have a GPU, you can switch that to GPU compute. You can go to Edit, Preferences, and then head over to, you have to activate it under System, and then turn on your whatever GPU device you have. I think I might have messed up my system. Hopefully this will be recoverable. Oh, live on YouTube. Hanging. So I'm using just an old Apple M1 Mini, and it's kind of underpowered for the modern day. How embarrassing. Oh, there we go. Okay, I threatened to force quit it, and then it started behaving. Anyway, so you go to this section in your system, and if you have like a NVIDIA graphics card, you're going to make sure those are checked and turned on. And then you'll be able to use GPU compute. I'm going to switch back to CPU for mine because it just tends to be happier on my system. Especially for all this stuff I'm also doing streaming and all this other stuff. So tell you what, I'm going to also do some optimizations to make my render go faster. I'm going to turn off denoise. I'm also going to make my noise threshold 1 instead of... Why is that not working? 1. Come on. Okay. Guess I can't touch the number keys anymore. Oh, something has gone wrong with my Blender. Let me save this. Just a moment. I'm going to quit my Blender and we're going to open that up again. Okay, that's working again. Yeah, something went wrong when I was messing with my compute settings there, so I apologize for that. Anyways, old computer problems, so don't blame Blender, that's on me. Let's continue our improvements here. Noise threshold, I think I can often use a lower noise threshold, or not lower, but a chunkier noise threshold, because the angular size that we're rendering is so big that the noise threshold can be also kind of big. Denoise, I turn it off because oftentimes I don't need it because of the way I render. Path guiding, I turn it on. And let's see, lights, yes, I do use a light tree. Advanced automatic is fine. Light paths, oftentimes I turn these down to 0 except for transparency just to start, but that will make things less photorealistic if you're doing something close to the ground and you need photons to bounce off of each other. It depends on what you're doing on if you want these on or not, but you can always turn them back on with these presets, or you can turn them back off again yourself. I'm turning them off because this will make my render go much faster. I do not need caustics. Let's see. Performance. I usually will turn on persistent data. What that does is if there's something it calculates between frames, it will keep it. And instead of recalculating it between frames, saves you a little bit of time. Which, when you're rendering between frames, frame to frame, saves lots of time. Color management, kind of a new default in Blender is it'll default to AGX, which I don't like, so I changed that back to standard because I don't like it to mess with my colors. Now to the output settings. This is where we set our output size. Your planetarium dome might be 2048 by 2048, or maybe you're a 4K dome. I'm going to keep this to 1024 by 1024 just so that we render fast. Frame rate, 30. Output. And this is where we can set up a kind of a trick. We can do / dome frames / frame underscore. And what that does is the double slash says wherever the Blender file is, put in a directory called dome frames right next to it, and then put in put inside that the files called frame inside there. Next, I'm going to decide I don't need alpha, but I do like ping, so I'll stick with ping. You might want a 16-bit ping if you're using a lot of gradients. And in color management, that should just be following the scene. Okay. Let's see if we're ready to render. We can go to the camera preview. We can roll our scroll wheel back so that we see the whole thing. We can click up here on our render preview. And let's see if that looks like it's right. And I'm not sure if it does. Let's try an actual render. Well, maybe we don't have anything showing up in our scene. Maybe that cube needs to be closer. Why this no work? Oh, I know why. We forgot one very important thing. On this camera, we need to change the camera to a fisheye camera. So we need to select the camera. We go to this camera tab here. We change perspective to panoramic. And this will say fisheye equisolid, which is going to start looking pretty good. But you'll see that there's a big border around the outside. There's a gap between the edge of the camera and the render. And so if you render with fisheye equisolid, you get this gap, which we don't want. So we want fisheye equidistant. Excuse me. And that fills the whole frame. So now when we render, we should get something that looks like that render preview. So now we're cooking. Let's set up a Blender file that is going to be kind of useful for you as far as defaults go. Blender's interface is changeable, so you can actually take and move these borders around, you can see. And you can also split the areas, so you can put my mouse here, and I can right-click, do a horizontal split. Then I can come up here on this little corner is where I can assign what that area is supposed to be. I can say, oh yeah, that's a 3D area now. So I have a little baby 3D area. And we can make that a camera preview. And if I come up here, I can roll my scroll wheel to see all the options. So I can turn that into a render preview. Pretty handy. And I can also turn off the overlays, which is nice. For reasons that might not make sense just now, but it at least gets rid of this thing. Okay. Now, when I move stuff around in my scene here, I could have a more simplified view over here. And we can see our result over there. Now I promised some text. Let's do that. Let's delete this cube here. You can do a right click and delete, but also next to that you can see that X is the key that you can push to delete. So we could also use our keyboard shortcut X, which will ask you, do you want to delete? And you could say yes, delete. Now it's time to add the text. Let's go to add text. And now we have a text object. And we can change this text object in edit mode. So we're going to go from object mode to edit mode. And we'll just say something like hello world. Did I spell that right? Oh, good. Okay. Now text, we can, let's see if we can figure out how to get that to go onto your dome view. But in the meantime, I'm going to modify the text over here. So I've got a little window for my text editing, little A down here. When the text is selected, I can pick that A tab. And I've got some options here. I will skip over some of these, but one of these nice ones is Geometry Extrude, which I like quite a bit. Also like to put a little bevel on there. The bevel profile can be determined by you. Let's see what's happening there. The font can be changed. You have to know where to find your fonts. And one way to do that is to download fonts and then just put them somewhere where you know where they're going to be. I'm going to stick to the default font just for today. But click on this to change your font. You just need to go and find the font file to change fonts. Size. We can change our size. We can change our justification. And we can also even change character spacing. And that's animatable too, by the way, which might as well show you animation now. Everything in Blender is animatable, just about everything. And you can animate by tapping I on the keyboard. You hold your mouse over the value you want to animate, and then tap I. And see it turns yellow. And then you move your timeline to another time, and then you change the value, and then you tap I again to set that other keyframe. You look at your timeline down here, and you see you've got a couple of diamonds on that timeline. That means you've got 2 keyframes. And an animation is a difference over time between 2 different values. So that's cool. We can put that up in our scene. So right now our scene looks kind of terrible. Let's make this animate so that the hello world kind of jumps up and it expands while it's doing that expansion, and then it maybe goes back down after it's done. So let's move our time back to here. Where should it start? Let's have it start its move over here and down out of the view of the camera. And we're going to animate its location and its rotation. So now let's move to maybe frame 30. Oh, well, you know that. Let's move this diamond here so that it is expanding, maybe starting at frame 20. That's another thing about Blender is you can move the animation keys, which is pretty nice. So it's going to be moving. Okay. Oh, actually, well, it'll start. Well, it starts where it starts. Okay. We'll start at 10. I'm getting mixed up here. There's a more complex way to change this around, but I'll show you that in a moment. Okay. We like that action. We'll just go here and we'll bring it up and let's rotate it so it's facing the camera. It's not lit very well, so why don't we bring our light down to light that a little bit better. Now in your dome, that's going to be really spread out. So you might, we might want to change some stuff here, but that's a good start. Notice that over here, our values are not yellow yet. They're green and orange and stuff. And so if I move the timeline, all of a sudden they snap to somewhere else that I didn't want. And that's because I did not set the keyframe. So let's do that again. Bring that up. Rotate it. Don't forget to set that keyframe with I. And now we're set. Okay, so let's see what it looks like. We're watching up here. Okay, that's kind of neat, except I wanted the spread to be a little more pronounced while it was up in front of the camera. So let me show you a trick here. Let me get rid of my little face so you can see more clearly what's going on. We're going to bring this up and we're going to change this from a timeline to a graph editor. We're going to click on this text and we're going to look at, if you have a home key on your keyboard that's usually above your arrow keys, tap that home key and you can see all the things that you're animating. So your rotation is this one, that big huge one. And if we're happy with that, which I am, I'm just going to hide that one. I'm good with that. I'm also good with the overall motion. So let's take and hide these as well. Let's just focus on this one. I'm going to hit home again. And now I can work on just this global spacing between characters is what that says. So I want that to maybe start later. We can do that by moving this node over here on the graph. So the way to do that really, really tightly is with a keyboard shortcut. We're going to do a G for grab. And I don't want to move it up and down. I just want to move it in the X direction. So G, and now that I have it, I tap X. Move it over here. Click to make it stick. And let's see how we like our animation now. Yeah, that's better. Although that is a little too spread out. So this one, let's just move it down. I like it on 90, but let's move it straight down. So I'm going to do a G. So I've grabbed it. Now Y to keep it in the Y direction. Click to make it stick. Pretty good. All right. Now let's take and I'm trying to remember all the stuff I promised that we would do. We're going to add some other objects to the scene. We can take and change this back into a timeline. Move that back down. Bring myself back so we remember that we're looking at a human. And let's get our, let's go ahead and just render and see how that's looking. Good enough. Now, let's see. Let's add a little, you know what, let's add a sphere. Let's add a sphere so we can have an actual world. So we're going to go to Add, Mesh, UV Sphere. Notice that that looks kind of like a disco ball. And it also came in where that 3D cursor is. That's where all the new objects will show up, is wherever that thing is. We'll move it in just a moment, but before we touch it, before we move it, we need to change something. We want to make it more resolute, more smooth. And the way to do that is we click this thing that says Add UV Sphere, and it's the only time you have a chance to do this, is when you're just first adding it. We're just going to double these values. So we'll make that a 64. And what's that, 16? We can actually just say times 2. That should be 32. That works for me. And then also another way to make it even smoother is we can right click and say shade smooth. So now let's take and move this over here and up. Get it into a pleasing position, whatever you like the looks of. And now we need to go on the internet. We need to find us NASA Blue Marble Visible Earth. This next generation map is pretty good. Let's go here. Oh, whoops. I want to find, well, there's just that. There's this map, but there's also a whole collection of these. I like that one. Let's get one that isn't too gigantic. I'm gonna download that. Oh, come on, internet. it is. So we're going to take and map this onto that sphere. Right click, save image to downloads. Or however you need to do, whatever you need to do to get that saved. And I'm going to do some move that up to where I need it. Now let's take and make this world actually have a texture on it. So we can switch this to a render preview if you want. Zoom in on that world. And let's go down to our material settings. Click on New. We're on Principled BSDF. And we're going to turn roughness all the way down. Base color. This is where we can change the color of our material. But we don't want to just have any color. We're going to take and make that into a image texture. It's pink because it is broken right now. We have to assign a texture to that. And this is where we find our texture that we made, which I moved to my desktop. So now we have our world texture there. And this is a nice, simple one. If you go on YouTube, you can find lots of tutorials to make more complex earth textures, or more complex earth materials. But this is the one I'll stick with. All right, so that's pretty good. Now, our background is still gray, which is not good. We need another background. We can take and change our world background here in the world settings. And if you click on that gray box, you can make it black, which is fine. Or if you want to be a little more fancy, we can put stars in the background. So let's find us some stars. If you search for NASA SVS Deep Star Map, you will find some awesome resources, which I like quite a bit. There's this NASA Deep Star Map 2020. Which you can download. Also, there's another one that I like, which is the NORALab 88 Constellations map. This one's pretty sweet as well. So this one's is galactic coordinates, which is a little more different to work with. You'd have to do some transformations on it to make it correct for your scene. But or transform Earth to make it correct for your scene, but that's fine. Let's just grab this one. So I'm going to click that, and I will get the, let's see. Oh my goodness, these are so big. Just kidding. We're going to go back to NASA because it's got some smaller options. Let's go and just grab the 4K. And that should be downloading. Oh, I have to allow downloads. Come on. Okay, we got it. So there's our map, and it looks kind of funny. This is the sinusoidal is an artifact of projection, but we'll see that that looks nice and straight once we get it mapped into our background. So let's go here. And just a moment, I need to move that to the desktop. Okay. Click on the yellow dot for color. We're going to make this an environment texture. We go to open and find your texture. Open image. And there you go. Now to make this a correct scene, we need to find Polaris. I saw Ryan over there. Let's see. There's the Big Dipper. Trace it from the handle to the cup. These last two stars will point to the North Star, which is this one. And Earth's North Pole should be pointing up to that. Which should, I don't know, it's pretty close. I think we're off by a few degrees. So if I pointed Earth straight up, then its North Pole would be pointing straight up. There we go. Now remember, everything in this scene is movable, so if you wanted to, you could move your camera to put it somewhere else in the scene. And if you're interested in learning to manipulate the background, I could show you how to do that. Just give me some questions about that. Hello, Lost in the Woods. Nice to meet you. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll address those. I'll be live for just a few more minutes. Let's get some 3D resources from NASA now. Search up NASA 3D resources. And they've got a bunch of stuff. 3D models. Some of these are actually Blender files. And some of these are not Blender files. Some of these will be like OBJs or something else. So let's find something good. Maybe a cool satellite that we put in space. Maybe Hubble? Okay, we got a Blender version of Hubble. Let's grab that. I'm going to move that to my desktop. So we have another Blender file which has Hubble in it. And what we want to do is we want to move that into this scene. Now this could be a tricky operation because it might be a messy file. It might have a lot of stuff in it. And so what we want to do is we want to check it out. So maybe we want to save our scene here that we're working on. We're going to open that Hubble file. And that's nice. It looks like all the textures are packed in the file, which is great. Oh, and it even looks like it's a single object, so that really makes things easy. So I think we're good to go. Cool. Let's go back to our file. And let me show you how to bring an object in from a different Blender file. So we're going to go to File. We're going to Append. You might think it was Import, but that's something else. That's for when you have a non-Blender thing. It's when you append. Or when you import is for non-Blender stuff. Appending is when you have a Blender file and you can bring something in from another Blender file. Click the Blender file. Then we got to drill down into the objects. And we saw that the 3DS root was the main thing I think we wanted. Let's try that. That either works or it doesn't. Sometimes you zoom out or you zoom in because it might be huge or small. Or it might not be right. So you delete it. Let's try again. Let's append. Yeah, let's try HST instead. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Oh, and it's huge. Look how big it is. Okay. Let's make it smaller. We're just using S for scale, which is a keyboard shortcut for scale. Moving that up. Smaller. Let me get my camera preview back up here. Now we're at a point where those orthographic views are useful. And pretty close to where we want to be. You can take and move that into some pleasing orientation. Okay. So now we have a really basic scene. We've done some really basic animation. We've mapped a basic texture onto our world. We've also appended an object from NASA 3D resources into our scene. We've also mapped a background onto the scene. So I'm looking for any questions that you have. Hello, hello. Everyone's saying hello. Oh my goodness, hello. I'll be live for a few more minutes if there's any questions about what we've covered, and otherwise I will be checking the comments on this video, and I'll be doing follow-ups later on. We can find see if we can find some more 3D stuff to add. Let me try an OBJ file. I'll show you how that works. Maybe Eros. Oh, an STL. Okay, STL. We can add that. So we're going to download this STL file. And move that to my desktop. So STL is normally, this would be used for like a 3D printer. Oh dear, this is actually set up for 3D printing. So this will be a funny one to add to Blender because it'll be just two halves of this asteroid. We're going to do it anyway, just for fun. So to import an STL file, this will work for any STL, even a cut in half STL. We go to import STL, and you just find your STL file and say import STL. Now, the difference between importing STL versus other formats is it does not come with texture or materials. Let's take and move that up. Oopsie. And we're going to rotate it. Tell you what, we're going to try it. Let's try to fix it. At least try to get close. We can do this in edit mode. So I've switched to edit mode by hitting the tab key. It's the shortcut to switch to edit mode. And I'm going to actually focus on these by hitting the slash key on my number pad. Slash key just focuses on the selected objects. We can select we can use our circle select tool here to select, is that not working the way I thought? Oh, I'm still in object mode. Edit mode, please. Circle select. There we go. Okay. I can zoom out and I can select big swaths of this one, which is the one I want. And hopefully I got it all. Let's see. Okay. Let's go to that orthographic X. And we're going to rotate this. Rotate 180. Oh, goodness. Let's try that one more time. RX180. I'm using keyboard shortcuts there, just calling them out. G. Doesn't match up real good, does it? Oh. Okay. That's R. 180. That wasn't quite right. R. I guess this is kind of silly doing all this, but things you do when you get an idea in your head. Let's check our solid view and just see what that's looking like. Well, I guess it's not that bad. Going back to, here's a reason to use wireframe view mode, because I'm going to do a box select on this top piece. The problem is I only selected the part that was facing me. I need the whole thing. So when you have wireframe selected, it selects all the way through. which is what we want. Okay, now let's merge these, or at least get these mated down together. Try and get nice and close so we see what's going on. Good enough for me. Well, almost good enough. Looks like our rotation is still a little off. Okay. Okay, so we're out of object, or back into object mode, out of edit mode. Gonna go and hit my slash key on my keyboard again. Takes and shows me everything else again. And I'm gonna take and go back to my select box tool. That's what I'm used to. We can move this back. And you know, it's weird to have the center outside of the object. So we can right click and we can set origin to geometry, which is a little nicer to work with. That way that when I rotate it, it'll be rotating on its object center. All right, finally, it is time to show you just the last step, which is to render out frames for your Planetarium animation. So right now we've only got, oh, I don't know, maybe about 100 frames that we care about. So, so let's set our frame range to 100, then frame 100. So we're only going to render from 0 to 100, or from 1 to 100. Now all this other stuff could be animated. Remember all those tricks we showed you earlier in the stream? To render animation, first we'll save. We'll double check and make sure we have our output settings set so we know where we're going to be putting this stuff. And then we will go to render animation. And that is where the render magic starts happening. So each frame will get made. Now it looks like these are taking about, oh, maybe about 4.5 seconds per frame, which is not terrible, but not too bad. And that's thanks to the things that we did to speed up the render. Let's check our outputs here. Let me get to the desktop. Dome frames. And there's the frames getting made. So that brings us to the end of what we were planning to do today, and thank you for watching. If you've got questions, I want you to put those into the video comments, and I will get those addressed in a follow-up. So thank you all for being here, and goodbye.